All right, welcome everyone to this Q&A. Again, want to welcome everyone to this Q&A. Question came in earlier, and the question was how do I explain Shomer negiah, i.e., a man not touching a woman or vice versa? Obviously, it's not their spouse. How do you explain that to completely secular people that aren't Jewish? Hard enough explaining it to Jews, secular Jews, but so I would say that it is awkward, definitely awkward that if you meet somebody, someone of the opposite sex, let's say, business or otherwise, and the question is going to be, you can't shake their hands, right? Some say, you have to die rather than shake someone's hand of the opposite sex, regardless whether it's meant to a woman or vice versa, right? That's the severity. So, there are, I would say, different ways, to diffuse the situation. I'm not saying they're always successful. A person can say, well, if it's a guy, I only shake hands with ugly women. That sort of diffuses it a little bit. Or someone once told me a good way, seemingly out of it, is that, they put out their hand and you sort of do a Japanese bow, right? So you keep your hands behind your back. You acknowledge the other person. You don't acknowledge the other person. That's going to look pretty bad also. So you have to at least acknowledge, the other person. That's a good way. I think certainly helps, again, a little bit of a bow, keep your hands behind your back. And so that can sort of diffuse the situation a little bit. Well, the question was, get to the nitty gritty here. Question was, how do you explain it? So the problem is most people have the attention span, of a commercial, right? Commercials used to be about 6 minutes. So today, no such thing, right? Commercials are much quicker, just throw images at you. So you only have a very small amount of time. You only have a small amount of time to give out, to give over the answer. And within, if you spend more than 30 seconds, you've already lost over here. So it's not, you can't answer it in 1 second. You gotta, you just gotta say, well, we definitely value relationships, people of the opposite sex, and therefore, shaking someone's hand, even if we would call it, let's say, a fish handshake, right? A fish handshake, right? Very weak handshake, kind of like they'll make a big distinction there. You would, a guy would shake the hand of the queen, right? She gives her hand, a little bit of a shake, like, what I would call a fish handshake, right? They say, well, that's not intimate. You're right. And shaking a hand is not intimate. You meet somebody, you shake their hand. Okay. It's not like you're giving them a hug or whatever. So it's not intimate. Okay. It's still forbidden. 100%, it's still going to be forbidden either way, for a guy to a girl or vice versa, right? Unless it's a spouse and it's not that time in the month, etc. So over here, the reason, is we save, shaking someone's hand, a hug or whatever. Obviously, for someone we're allowed to hug, i.e., a parent to a child, opposite sex of a child, not a problem. Grandparent to grandchild. But any other relationship is forbidden, right? A child, let's say, to an aunt. That's forbidden when the child, is a certain age, right? So that would be forbidden. I remember that, use myself as an example. And so I have a great aunt still alive, should be well in her 90s, mid 90s. And I happened to see her because I was at a mourner's house. My father's brother passed away a number of years ago. And anyway, she went to give me a hug or whatever, and whatever, was awkward. It was awkward. So whatever, it sort of caught me off guard. And a lot of these things, you got to be prepared no matter what happens, but you can be definitely caught off guard. And, I certainly didn't come out smelling like a rose over here by any stretch. So I was like, come on, she's so old, like this and that, like, all these antiquated old things. So I wasn't given a chance to explain it, and it wouldn't have mattered. No one's gonna listen to me anyway. So, it's a waste of time. But, at the end of the day, touching someone of the opposite sex is forbidden, right? So how are you going to explain that? You have to say, we value relationships. So we don't want anything to start in any which way. Even if the person's married, doesn't matter. We set up boundaries. We have boundaries over here. Because if you don't have boundaries, we know what happens. When's the last time, someone said, wow, I'm just happy shaking that person's hand. Like, come on. We're all human. But you're going to say it's a business relationship. It's a business relationship. So what? Or you meet someone for the first time or whatever it is. So I don't think there's an easy way to explain it except to say, we value relationships. We value the opposite sex, but at the same time, we're not going to have any contact whatsoever except that the person, is a parent to a child or, or a husband to a wife, or a grandparent to a grandchild. All right, so that would work. Obviously, a husband to a wife, if she doesn't have a period or whatever, so that would also be fine. But anybody else be forbidden. So you say we, respect relationships, and even if, someone might say, well, but it's just showing, you're reciprocating over here. It doesn't mean anything. You're just shaking the person's hand. The rabbi said otherwise. Said, you see someone walking down the street. Again, this is a guy talking here. Imagine, you see someone walking down the street and say, wow, I'm so happy holding this person's hand. Well, that's obviously not the case, right? Definitely not the case. But in a situation like this, it's a business meeting, right? It's common courtesy. People say it's common courtesy. Okay. So what if it's common courtesy? So you can say, well, I'd love to shake your hand. It's a religious thing. Respect the opposite sex tremendously. So, I'm not a shaker. Now, that might be enough to answer the question. They may not go further. They're like, oh, religious reasons? Are they going to ask you more in depth? Why? Why is that? Well, I don't think you have to really go that much further. I think it's pretty obvious. What are you going to say? But, it's just a handshake. It's acknowledgement. Well, I can acknowledge you otherwise, in other ways. So again, to diffuse the situation, person can say, if it's a guy to a woman, he can say, well, I only shake hands with ugly women. That is, that could diffuse the situation. Also, if a person acknowledges the person, nods, bows, keeps their hand behind their back, that also can diffuse the situation. Now, if they ask, it's like, what do you think I'm going to bite? Whatever, you can just say, I don't shake hands for religious reasons. Now, if they're going to ask, well, what religious reasons? It's like it doesn't, we don't have contact with the opposite sex, and, it's only for a spouse or whatever, these relationships, and that's it because, we value the opposite sex, right? Even someone's going to say, but it's only a handshake. It's a, and it's, let's say it's not even a strong handshake, right? It's a fish handshake. So that goes, also, sister-in-laws, brother-in-laws, cousins, same thing, even within your own family, You're not shaking hands, right? You're not giving hugs. These are people you can marry. I mean, these are people you can marry. Cousins you can marry. Forget about what you say. It's going to be a problem having kids. And kids, come out deformed and this and that, whatever. But in general, it's permissible. An uncle can marry his niece. See that certainly by Mordechai to Esther, right? Other situations, right? See also by Amram Yocheved. Also, he married his aunt. So that relationship's forbidden. Father-in-law to daughter-in-law. Same thing. Any contact's forbidden. Totally forbidden. You're going to say, come on, what could happen? A lot could happen. What do you think? There aren't stories of, brother-in-laws and sister-in-laws, getting together even though they're married to other people. I think it's ever happened. Of course it's happened. Right? But there are boundaries. There are reasons. There are boundaries. That what? People can't control themselves? Again, people controlling themselves, God understood, right? The rabbis understood what is the strongest force given to a human being. The sexual force is the strongest force. I don't think there's any question. So it has to be harnessed. It has to be used the right way. It cannot, you can't have contact with somebody else outside of your spouse or your kids. You're going to say, come on, it's an old aunt. It's an old cousin. Okay, it's showing respect. That's what it is. So, people could say, come on, these antiquated laws, nothing's going to happen. Doesn't matter if nothing's going to happen. You're right. Maybe nothing ever will happen. So what? They didn't come up with these ideas, and understand what the Torah wanted because there were so many things that were so far-fetched. They weren't far-fetched. Things happen. Someone works, they work in an office, whatever. You get too chummy, and I can speak about this for hours. You get too chummy with somebody, of course something could happen. I know somebody will never call, a guy will never call him by his first name. Distance. And there should be distance. Makes perfect sense. There should be distance. Right? Somebody points out it's all about a simple handshake. That's right. That's what it is. So someone will say, okay, did anyone ever watch the old movie because it's old, in the 80s? Anyone ever watched the movie When Harry Met Sally? Right? Basically, it comes out you can never be friends with someone of the opposite sex. You can't. Friendship doesn't work, right? We answered this question before. Can you be friends with a non-Jew? So there are issues, bad values, other things. We need boundaries. So that's the reason. Because you don't want anything else to happen. And if you don't have boundaries, the rabbis understood. You don't have boundaries, things are going to happen. Things could happen. Right? You think, come on. I remember I was just telling someone this the other day, how last night, actually, I was at a meal for a friend of mine whose son got married. So anyway, talking about different things. And about technology and whatever, how bad society is, how much worse it's gotten, and all kinds of things. And I mentioned, I think I was by my in-laws once. The TV was on, they had Oprah on, right? So what was the thing? They interviewed this guy and this woman. This guy was originally married, right? He's really married to this woman, and they got divorced. And who's he with? Her mother. Right? Total prohibition. It's a total prohibition for a no-hide as well. Right? So you think, how could these things happen? You're going to say, well, it's a strange case. Maybe it is, but it happens. And the whole thing was how everyone gets along so well. Imagine, you're living with your ex-wife's mother. I don't know, whatever. Well, she wasn't that old, but it doesn't matter. Right? We're not going to get gross here. We're going to keep it clean. But imagine, Imagine, your ex-wife shows up for dinner by your mother. It's nuts, because that's why Oprah had him on. Right? It's kind of nutty thing. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It certainly can happen. So you got to nip in the bud. You have to have boundaries, and boundaries among boundaries. Just make sure things aren't going to happen. But that's the reason. So you're going to say, someone points out it's only a handshake. Yeah, it always starts with a handshake, right? So in business, it's a little bit trickier, because a person will say, again, it depends what type of relationship it is, depends how much contact you have to have. But there are situations a person can be put in, and I've spoken about this before. There are situations a person can be put in that it's a problem. There aren't easy solutions. Totally not easy solutions. But the Torah is the Torah. Torah doesn't change, right? So you got to come up with some nice, do some nice fancy footwork over here by trying to explain. Explain to someone, I always shake hands with ugly women. So that's an icebreaker. That'd be an icebreaker. So very good. At the same time, if they would ask further, you say, listen, we respect the, opposite sex quite a bit. And, we only shake hands or hug people, of this type of relationship. And that's it. And we don't touch anyone else of the opposite sex. Now, they might think it's crazy. They might, think, really? Is that really true? What about this? What about that? So you can answer them whatever you know. But I think they'll get the picture. They might think it's crazy. They may think it's outdated. It's old, way old fashioned, if that's, but what are they going to, I think deep down they'll understand. It doesn't mean they have to agree with it. Totally doesn't mean they have to agree with it. But at the same time, you tell it the way it is. I don't think someone's going to give you that amount of time to explain it. They don't like the short version. So give them, a short version. That's what I would say. That's what I would say to that. Somebody asks, our training similar to yeshiva. So yeshiva training, is very different. And the reason is because you're going to go through text and analyze the text and what this one said, that one said, what's practical law, not practical law, and all that. So for JIT, a Jew in training, what are they getting? They're getting, they're getting the brass tacks. They're getting the brass tacks. Brass tacks means, this is what I have to do. Difference of opinion, we hold like this, whatever, this is what I have to do. In the context of yeshiva, you're battling out ideas, going through texts. Here we're making it very easy. We're just going through certain things. We're not, like someone said, why don't you go through everything? First of all, class would take too long. But, if I would, then, it's a lot more explaining to do, right? So, sometimes let's say in the class of laws of blessings, so we'll say, okay, the Talmud states like this. My question is, what does it mean? So you're not saying, wow, Rashi says like this, Tosfos says like this. Then you got the Rosh, then you got the Rambam, then you got, most people don't have all that, amount of time. They want to know what to do practically. So sometimes, delve in depth a little bit. We have done that, certainly. Delve in depth a little bit, what's behind it, why we do it. That is definitely similar to what's done in yeshiva. No question. At the same time, it's about, it's about answers, about why I'm doing it. It's about practicality. What do I do now? Right. So that's a different thing. Right. That's a whole different that's a whole different thing. Someone says, what about Genesis chapter 38, 15 to 16? Let's see. There's a lot of content what appeared to be a non-Jew. Let's see. 38, 15 to 16. Talking about Tamar and Judah. Yeah. So simple explanation is he had contact with her, right? He was with her sexually. So you could say, well, that's forbidden. Daughter-in-law and father-in-law, right? What's simple explanation? Torah wasn't given yet. Yaakov's married to two sisters, also forbidden. But if you want to tell me they kept the Torah before it was given, so different levels of what they kept. But here, Yaakov, I'll say it like this. Yaakov marries Rachel. What happens? She gives Leah the signs, and he ends up marrying Leah. And then Lavan says, this is what we do. You can't take the younger one before the older one, blah, blah, blah. Now, how can you be married to her? Right? Gemara states in Kedushin. Gemara Kedushin says, you got to know the person you marry. You got to see the person you marry. And if you see it's not the same person, then you're not married over here. It's a mistake. Why isn't it a mistake over here? It says, Moiv Rebbe, I rather go to Moshe Stern Moshlita, should be well. He brings down in Chochmah Vadas, asks this question, how can he be married to her? It's a mistake. Right? He's going to claim it's a mistake. I didn't marry Leah, I married Rachel. So Yaakov, Rebbe says, Yaakov understood Jewish people are also going to be built through Leah as well. That's one explanation. In other words, since he understood that was going to be the case, then it's not a mistake. That's not a mistake. So here, Tamar tricks Yehuda and ends up being with her. She gets pregnant. She has 2 kids. Now, the whole question if he stays with her or not, the whole discussion. But in the end, through those 2 kids is kingship. Remember, all the kids didn't have kids, right? Er died, Onan died, his other son, he didn't give over to Tamar, right? Which was Yibum, levirate marriage, which we don't do today. But so these were his kids. This is where kingship's going to come from. Very strange. Comes from that type of relationship. It comes along the Torah and says, why is that okay? If he kept the Torah before it's given, he can't be with her. You don't have to be with her, but God orchestrated because that's what it was supposed to be. That's what it was supposed to be. Tell me it's not allowed. So if you tell me it's before the Torah was given, okay. But if they kept the Torah before, and they knew he's not allowed to do this, but he got tricked over here. He didn't know it was her. I mean, the whole question why it's with her in the first place, that's the whole discussion. But he got tricked over here. Totally got tricked. But he understood once he got tricked that that's what was supposed to be. That's what was supposed to happen. So you're right. Technically, that was a forbidden relationship. So, we gave a couple answers to that. Orthodox men do not shake hands. It's with the opposite sex. Men can shake hands with men. It's not a problem. It's men with women, women with men. So Orthodox men don't shake hands with women. Now, someone's going to tell me, well, I've seen Orthodox men do it. So I can't answer why. But everyone's mentioned a story of someone that met the Queen of England. Right? Met the Queen of England, and she sticks out her hand. The problem is he can't shake her hand, but it's going to be embarrassing over here. Now, he claims, this rabbi claimed it was okay because it's a fish handshake, right? Fish handshake like this, right? Like that. No lust, no nothing. Doesn't matter if she's 90 years old or whatever, right? Fish handshake. So you wanted to claim maybe it's okay. Maybe that's okay because no intimacy over here. Forget about embarrassment. You'd have to give up your life even to embarrass. Even she's going to get embarrassed. So what? Well, so let her be embarrassed. So he explains to her, sorry, Queenie, I can't shake your hand. I'd love to, but it's against my religion, my principles, this, that. You move on. Otherwise, the rabbinical authorities say you got to die. You don't want to. You don't want to shake someone's hand of the opposite sex. Men can shake men's hands. That's not a problem. It's meant to women, women to men. So here someone says, well, if you're nice and you apologize, fine. Again, you can break the ice by saying I only shake hands with ugly women. That'll help. And then you can explain it. Or you can say, I'd love to, but, I have religious principles, whatever. some people just say, oh, you're a wacko, maybe. Others will maybe say that anyway, but, others may say, okay, he's got values, whatever, teach their own. But there are people that will be understanding. Other people may think, and, I think it's somewhat easier by non-Jews than Jews, because I think Jews get a lot more offended. Because they're like, what, not good enough? You used to shake my hand, used to give me a hug. You won't give me a hug now? You're like, what am I, chopped liver? You're out. I had someone tell me this. Oh, I used to do this. You're not going to do it now. They said, you want to speak to me? He said, I'd be more than happy to speak to you. This woman tells me, more than happy to speak to you. But if I speak to you, you have to give me a hug and a kiss. That's the condition. That's a little bit being closed-minded, isn't it? Right? So I said, okay, have it your way. They're like, if you won't hug and kiss me, okay, so that's it. Not going to happen. Past is the past. We're living in the present. That's not going to happen. It's over. I feel bad, but, what can I do? God comes before you. Well, if you're going to do that, okay. This person hammered me. Absolutely hammered me. I didn't come out smelling like a rose. They said, come on, you really did that? I said, I'm not going to do it. It's just not going to happen. Okay? You don't have to like it. You can go eat kugel, right? You don't have to like it. Okay? I'm not the one who wrote the laws here. And that was it. Person wouldn't even speak to me. That's how open-minded they are. They wouldn't even speak to me unless I would agree to give her a hug and a kiss. Okay? They're lost. They're lost. So it's crazy, but that's, can't go mix swimming. It doesn't matter if you're all covered up, can't go mix swimming. You can't shake, someone of the opposite sex, can't shake their hand, can't give them a hug, even if it's a fish hug or a fish handshake or whatever. It's forbidden, right? Totally forbidden. Someone points out, well, this world's going rampant with gay relationships and all that, right? Could that be an issue in Orthodox ranks? I mean, there are Orthodox Jews, I think, have an issue with homosexuality, have an issue with, lesbianism. There are some, I'm sure. How they call themselves Orthodox, I'm not exactly sure. But there are a lot of things, unfortunately, in the outside world that have seeped into the Orthodox world. They've seeped in. Bad values, all kinds of things that have totally seeped in. And you can have that also. Listen, you can have people young people get married and get divorced after a couple months. That's also a phenomenon going on. Different things. So, divorce is on the rise. Why is it on the rise? Because marriage is something you have to work at. You have to work hard at it. Some people don't want to change. They don't want to work. They don't want to work hard. So, divorce rate is up. I would say maybe it's close to 10%, maybe. And even if it is, it's still better than the secular world. Secular world is like 60%, 70%. Better to live together than get married. Get a high percentage of really staying together. But there are a lot of secular values, bad values, that have seeped into the Jewish world, 100%. 100%. So we got to be careful. 100%. We have to be careful. We have to be careful over here. Someone asks, do we have a Holy Spirit despite our beliefs in different religions? We have a soul. Everybody has a soul, Jews and non-Jews. Is that the Holy Spirit what Christians talk about? No. But everyone has a spiritual side. They have a spiritual soul, keeps us alive. Once the soul goes out, we all die. Right? But, you're 100% right. There are different beliefs in different religions. So I'm not going to answer for any other religion. Right? Not my job. Judaism, you have a spiritual soul. The spiritual soul craves spirituality. If you bury it, then the soul gets sort of destroyed, and you're basically just an animal. You walk, you talk, you do other things, but you have no spiritual side. Right? So there's always a constant struggle between body and soul. Always. So if a person keeps Torah mitzvahs, does what they're supposed to do, whether it's a Jew or a non-Jew, whatever applies to a non-Jew, that elevates the body, elevates the soul. But if not, and you go give into your base desires, that the base is the body, the base is the soul. Right? So again, different religions I'm not interested in. Whatever they have to say, they can say whatever they want. Right? Totally irrelevant to me. Into Judaism. Because the soul functions the way we just explained. God puts the soul into a body. We don't have a choice. We're born against our will. The Mishnah Pirkei Avos says in Ethics of Our Fathers, we're born against our will. We die against our will. Coffman would say in parentheses, you still have to live. Right? So we're not in control of who our siblings are, who our parents are, all these different things. We're not in control. But God put the soul in the body in order for us to work on whatever we need to fix up in this world. So that quote unquote Holy Spirit is the soul. That's what it is. In the soul, really is so powerful spiritually, it should destroy the body, but it gets trapped by the body, gets trapped by physicality. So when it gets trapped by physicality, the only way the soul can shine in certain ways is by keeping Torah and mitzvah. But it'll never shine like it's a pure soul in the soul world. That'll never happen till after the soul goes out. Because once the soul is part of the body, it's a different issue. Totally different issue. Someone asks, what's the difference between a Tana and a current Gadol Hador? Major difference. First of all, a Tana was, at the time of the Mishnah. Talking about more than 2,000 years ago. So a Tana, a Tana is at the time of the Mishnah. And the other rabbis in the Gemara were, contemporaries. Of the Tana, they called it Amora or Amoraim. But a Gadol Hador is the greatest rabbi of the generation. So even the greatest rabbi in today's generation or in previous generations, they don't come close to a Tana. They don't come close to an Amora. They don't come close to a Navi, to a prophet. A Tana doesn't come close to a prophet well before. So that's that's a major difference. Is it Torah knowledge? More than Torah knowledge. I mean, how can you compare a prophet to a Tana? A prophet is someone who had direct communication with God, right? Through a vision or whatever. And they were in a trance and different things, but they had direct communication with God. Tana didn't. Maybe a Tana saw Elijah's prophet, maybe. That could be. Or Elijah's prophet disguised as someone else, or whatever the case is, right? But, a prophet on a much, much higher spiritual level. Remember, the further time goes on, past Mount Sinai, the weaker the generation. So the prophets had to prepare for prophecy. And even if they were a prophet, God only came to them sporadically, except for Moshe Rabbeinu. God spoke to Moshe whenever Moshe needed to speak to him. So that's the major difference between the prophecy of Moshe Rabbeinu and everyone else. Not only that, the prophecy of Moshe Rabbeinu, everyone has to go through him because God gave a stamp of approval on Mount Sinai. So therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu's prophecy greater. Everyone has to go through him. Can't change or add or subtract. And anything you go against Moshe Rabbeinu, right? You're making up a new religion that knocks off Islam, knocks off Christianity, and any other religion. Because God gives a stamp of approval on Mount Sinai. And that hasn't changed. That 100% hasn't changed. So then someone says, we're giving more Torah knowledge than the Gaon Vilna. Yeah, it's on a higher level. Now, the Vilna Gaon was so great, he could have been even in Rashi's generation. But again, is Rashi as great as a Tana? No. Is the Rambam as great as an Amora? No. They had great knowledge for their generation. Previous generations were greater. Nothing to talk about. Can I know I'd be more hungry in a positive way? To make more money. Why would you want to make more money? So someone's going to say, so I can give more charity. But who says you have to give more charity? You give whatever you can give. We want to be hungry for Torah and mitzvahs, not physicality. right? I saw brought down somewhere, I don't know the source, so you can take this with a grain of salt, but I did see many years ago brought down that someone said 1 in 1,000 rich people go to paradise, go to Gan Eden, get a portion of the world to come. Because you got a lot of money, you don't want to give it away. You don't want to help others, right? You're going to say, well, I want to make more money in a positive way. Money corrupts. Money corrupts. Money gets wasted. Money causes people to have egos. Now you're going to say, but I'm going to use it for the right way. There are people that can use it the right way. Vast majority don't. So, should the person want to work hard to make a lot of money? No. You want to work hard to make money, to be able to support yourself, and to give whatever charity you can give. Someone asked the rabbi once, should I work more hours overtime so I can give more charity? He said, no. You work what you need to do to support yourself and your family. You give whatever you can give to charity, and that's it. You don't go beyond that. Who says you have an obligation to do that? Right? So you want to work hard to be the best non-Jew you can be. You got to support yourself. It's true. Right? But, we're not here desiring gold and silver and rubies and that's the ultimate. Say, no, I'll give to charity. I'll give a lot of money to charity. But that's not the end goal. The end goal is not, is not to work hard so I can make a lot of money. If you make a lot of money, good. You work hard because you got an obligation to support yourself and support your family. That's the obligation. That's what you have to do. Right? More than that, then you get into all kinds of problems. You get into problem being conceited, ego, other things. Money does funny things to people. And you see people, a lot of people not happy even if they have a lot of money. But I just, think about someone who's filthy rich, someone who hits the lotto. Right? Don't know who wins the lottery. Now, studies have been done. Like the majority of cases, if anyone who's won the lottery, tens of millions of dollars or whatever, the life was totally destroyed. Just about across the board. You're going to say, well, they don't know how to handle money. It's given to them. They didn't work for it. You can make any claim you want. That's the bottom line. Right? They didn't know what to do with it. They got carried away and destroyed them. So yeah, you need to make money to live, to survive. Right? Feed your family. But that's the end goal, to make a lot of money? No. If it happens, very good. But even if the end goal is I want to make a lot of money so I can give a lot of charity, that's not the end goal. You make what you make, and God's going to fix that amount every year. So you make what you make, you give what you can give to charity. When you're not working, you should be learning, right? Certainly if you're a Jew. And learn whatever applies to a Noah. Why do I have to go further to do other things? No obligation. Yeah, let me see other questions. Someone asked, they were in synagogue at night, saying the evening prayers, didn't finish before everyone else. Okay, take a few more minutes. Yeah, no one says you have to finish with everyone else. Right? Sometimes a person if you don't finish before everyone else, and there are certain things to answer to certain prayers you can't do. Like say the Kaddish prayer, right? The mourner's prayer or the Kaddish prayer is in between different parts of the service, or some other things you may have to answer. Okay. So you won't be able to answer that, that's not a problem. Definitely not a problem. Someone asks, if you ate food, then wash the tips of our fingers. So you're talking about, I think, if a person washes their hands for bread, right? You wash your hands for bread, it's got an obligation. Jew has an obligation to wash their hands for bread. You make the blessing, you eat the bread. Then you want to say grace after meals. Finish your meal. You want to say grace after meals, right? So many have the custom of doing afterwaters, what we call mayim achronim. What we call the afterwaters. Now, according to Vilna Gaon, when you wash the second time, what's the reason? There are a number of reasons, but one reason which really doesn't apply is that, they used a lot of salt way back when. Didn't necessarily eat with utensils, so put your fingers in your eyes, could be a dangerous situation, so you wash your hands. Right? So you wash your hands the second time. Now, the problem is that really doesn't apply today. So the difference of opinion how we view this. If you have a reason to a mitzvah that doesn't apply Some rabbinical authorities say you don't have to keep it. You don't do it. Right? Other rabbinical authorities will say, no, you still do it, but that doesn't mean that reason is the reason. There could be many other reasons why, just the rabbis didn't say. Right? So, for my machronim, these afterwaters, so men certainly should do it. There's a question about women. I don't really see any reason why women shouldn't do it either. So at the end of the meal, you just get up and you wash. So you're going to say, hey, but there are people there and it's Shabbos, so what? So you get up and you wash. Not a problem. Again, some people say women don't have to do it, but again, I don't see why that shouldn't be the case. There will be some, by Hasidim and others, they'll pass around a little thing, like a little jug of water, right? A very small jug of water. And what people do, they'll pour it on their fingertips. As if to say, okay, I'm doing my machroni, I'm doing these afterwaters, I wipe my fingertips with it. Now, according to the Vilna Gaon, he didn't do anything. Why not? Because he said you have to wash your hands like you'd wash your hands for bread. So washing a little bit on your fingertips is nothing. So I heard my Rebbe speak about this once. And you have to understand, he's an 8th generation descendant of the Vilna Gaon through his mother. So he always tells me, or he told me a number of times, that he keeps what the Vilna Gaon says unless it drives him crazy. I'll give one example. What does it mean drives him crazy? I used to sit with him while he ate breakfast. I probably also drove him crazy. But so anyway, so one day he's eating breakfast. He was drinking tea, of course, like the English, with sugar and milk. So one day I asked him, I was like, ew, what are you putting milk in? So he goes, how do you drink tea? I said, tea bag, hot water. He goes, sugar? I said, no. He said, milk? I said, no. He goes, you're not human. He goes, you're not human. So I said, well, how's the Rav drink tea? He says, I put in a tea bag, I put in sugar, I put in milk. I was like, ew. I said, how can you put in milk? He goes, I'm English. He said, you can't take the Englishman out of the Englishman. In any case, I sat with him once and he walked out of the kitchen. Now he didn't cover the tea. Now the Gemara says that if you walk out of the room and you have a drink, whether it's water, soda, anything else, you should cover it. Why? Because a snake might come in, put venom in there and you might die. So you gotta say, okay, that's different. They didn't have wooden floors back then. Maybe it doesn't apply, right? But it's called mayim gluyim. It's called water that is uncovered. So there are people that are stringent by it. Some people aren't stringent by it. But I asked him, the Gemara says that is a danger. And the danger is we're much more stringent than something that's forbidden. In other words, if you leave it uncovered, that's much more of a danger than if you ate pig. It's much more severe in certain ways than if a Jew ate pig. Why? Because it's a danger. And a danger you don't mess with. So the Vilna Gaon, Rav Elijah Vilna, a blessed memory, was super, super stringent about this. In other words, he walked out of a room, he covered it with a napkin, with a cup, with something. So even if you're going to tell me we have wooden floors or whatever, stone floors, so a snake can't get in and it's not common, doesn't matter. That's not the only reason that's given, right? It's not the reason. Could be 100 other reasons why. But you don't mess with the danger. You don't mess with the danger. So my Rebbe said, yeah, don't worry about it. It's fine. I was like, no, what about the Vilna Gaon? What about what the Vilna Gaon said about this uncovered tea? So he told me something. He said, I want to tell you. He said, I only keep what the Vilna Gaon says if it doesn't drive me meshuggah, if it doesn't drive me crazy. And he said, if I had to remember at my age, it's already many, many years ago. He said, if I had to remember at my age, I covered it, I didn't cover it, it would drive me meshuggah, it would drive me crazy. Right? So he said, I'm not going to worry about it. So I said, what about the Vilna Gaon? So I asked him again, no, what about your 8th generation descendant of the Vilna Gaon? What about the Vilna Gaon? He goes, what about being meshuggah? What about being driven meshuggah? I go, what about the Gaon? He goes, meshuggah. That was it. That was the conversation. So he said, I only keep what the Vilna Gaon says unless it, if it's going to drive me nuts, I won't do it. So he said that would drive him nuts. So that's why I brought that. That's why I brought that story in. Yeah. So I think I hit it on the head. You're talking about a jug poured on the tips of their fingers, right? It's called mayim achronim. Again, as my Rebbe said, that's nothing. Putting it on your fingertips is nothing. He holds like the Vilna Gaon that says you have to wash your hands, twice on one hand, twice on the other, or once, right? Just like you'd wash for bread. Twice you have to do it. So my Rebbe said, anyone does it that way, you're not doing anything. So he disagrees. Others have their whatever source they have that says as long as you wash the tips, that's good enough. He held not that way. So someone says, you go to the middle road, not buy huge houses, all that. Yeah, you're wasting money. We're not holding by the Chofetz Chaim. The Chofetz Chaim of blessed memory. Someone came from America, came to visit him, came to see him, and he was living in a house, and he had these rickety chairs, rickety table. It's like, Rebbe, let me buy you, at least new table, new chairs. So Chofetz Chaim asked him, he said, well, where's your furniture? He said, my furniture. He said, I'm only passing through. I'm only traveling. I don't take everything with me. So the Chofetz Chaim said, yeah, I'm also passing through. I'm also passing through this world. Live very simple. A lot of Torah giants live very simple lives. No fancy things, whatever. So, we live in a wasteful generation. I don't think there's any question about that. There's certain things we feel that we need that I think we should have, because it's something that we feel that we need. Now, if it's a waste, different issue, right? But who's gonna be in the levels the Mishnah Pirkei Avos says you're gonna have bread with water? You're gonna have bread with water. Who's gonna eat bread with water? This generation, what? Can't have candy bar, can't have chocolate, can't have cookies, can't have ice cream, whatever. There is a lot of waste, I would agree. And part of the waste is trying to keep up with everyone else. That's a huge problem. But who says I have to buy a fancy house? Right now, if you don't buy a fancy house, you live in Israel, price is absolutely through the roof. You pay a fortune for a house. You pay an absolute fortune, depending where you want to live. Depending where you want to live. So it's absolutely insane. But a person moves, let's say, outside the main religious areas. So fine, prices are less, but not cheap anywhere. Not too cheap anywhere. But that's not fine in the middle of the road. That's what it is. You move into a Jewish community, you find out prices are more expensive the closer you are to get to a synagogue. That you have to be in walking distance. That's what it is. Right? The closer you get, the prices go up. So it's supply and demand. So 100%, we don't want to overspend, in this and that. That's very true. That's very true. And a lot of times we waste money, certainly in a lot of different things. So we got to be careful with that. 100% we have to be careful with that. You have to know what's important, but at the same time, if we're raising kids, so our kids, they have to feel they have what they need. Now, does that mean I'm going to get them what all their friends have? Not necessarily. But they have to feel good enough about themselves that they have what they need. I remember older friend of mine, many years ago, daughter asked her mother, she's like, Mommy, are we poor? She's like, of course we're poor. We're on this whole thing, and we shop this way, we do this and whatever. And, some people, it's easier for them. If you have a big family, it's hard. No question. It's harder. You live in the States and tuition for schooling costs an absolute mint. That's where most people's money goes. Goes to tuition, food, car, mortgage, or rent. You don't have any money left over. I remember when I was in New Jersey, people would say, if you're making $100,000, you're not putting money away. You got summer camps, you got other things. I'm not saying you're keeping up with the Joneses per se. It's just cost of living. And now everything's going through the roof anyway. Food and gas and all kinds of things. But at the same time, we still have to live. We still have to, survive and all that. But, we have to make our kids feel they're not missing things. And there are certain things that we do because that's what we do. We don't want them to miss out. I'll give an example. You marry off a child. Now, thank God I got a lot of girls. So, my first daughter got married. So what's the custom? Girls get their hair done, right? What they call an updo, right? Whatever it is, curls, this, that, whatever it is. Plus my daughter was getting married, and I had four others, getting their hair done. That's what's done. You're gonna rent gowns. Okay, that's not the end of the world. It's not gonna say it's a huge expense, but what you're gonna tell a girl, you're gonna tell your daughter you're not getting updos, or whatever. It comes to wigs also, like through the roof. Totally through the roof. A person can spend $4,000 or $5,000 on a wig. I never did, but that's insane. First of all, you're putting someone else's hair on your head. It's one thing, but I mean, that's an absurd amount of money. A friend of mine told me his daughter works in high tech. That's a very good job. She wanted a 17,000 shekel, 18,000 shekel wig or whatever, which it stays much longer and lasts longer and all that. So you're talking about $4,000. He's like, I'm not paying for that. I'll pay some of it, but I'm not paying not paying the whole thing. You can get them for cheaper. But again, some things that are cheaper are not as good, don't last as long, whatever. Okay, but they're expenses. There are people who put themselves in debt to buy the kids' apartments. Now I understand why. No one wants to, keep paying rent and and all that. But who's got money to do that? So people go in debt. So it makes sense why. No one wants to get stuck paying rent. I get it, but someone's gonna, if it's like someone told me a while ago that marrying off kids, they own an apartment, so they mortgage the apartment's been mortgaged 3 times, 3 times to pay for weddings. That's what people do. Other people sold their apartment, bought a smaller apartment, married off a few kids that way also. Right, that's what the Satmar Rebbe said. The biggest miracle in Israel wasn't the 6-day war. It's how religious people marry off the kids. It's a miracle. I got 4 kids married. Absolute miracle. No question. Did I buy my kids apartments? Nope. I didn't have money. Still don't have money. Right? I don't own my own apartment. But my oldest daughter, the other side, bought for them. I have one daughter that got money somehow and finagled somehow. So they moved up north, and I got 2 other kids married. One just recently got married, so I know the other side doesn't have money and not going to buy for a while. Hopefully put money away. And my other daughter also, same thing. So you marry into families the same way. That are holding the same. But someone will say, "Well, I want you to buy, why don't you buy son, my son an apartment? It's going to be one of the deals." Well, ain't coming out of me. Definitely not coming out of me. If I had the money, not a problem. Not a problem. I have money. I'm tremendously generous. Yeah, you don't have money, okay? So that's what's done. So someone explained to me this years ago that people don't have money. They'll marry into similar types of families, and these are good families. I'm not talking bad families here. These are very good families. That's what you do. And if someone wants, they get this great guy or whatever. They're going to put themselves in hock to buy an apartment. Okay. That's what they, if that's what they can do, or that's what they're going to do. But people go crazy into debt to do it. Who says that's important? I remember I asked my Rebbe this many years ago. I asked him about this. I said, you got heads of yeshivas telling boys to do that, to say, this is how much we want and whatever. And my Rebbe answered very strong, which he always does. But he answered very strong. He said, who says these rabbis, quote unquote, are really Rosh Yeshivas? Very stark, very strong. Who says they have the status of being a Rosh Yeshiva? What, you're gonna squeeze a person that doesn't have so much money and say, yeah, we'll give over our son and we'll let them go out and this, that, but you have to guarantee an apartment. All right, what do you think? Like how many body parts do you think I can sell? Well, someone once told me, they said, listen, if you cut off part of the liver, it grows back. They said, okay, you try it first. I said, yeah, I'll try it. I'll let you know what happens. So people marry into similar types of families. It's called in the vernacular sometimes, it's called extortion. You got a lot of girls, what, it's going to have to cost you that much more? Right? So, my kids split it 50-50. That's what it was. That's what the Hasidim do. Both sides split 50-50, all the expenses. All the expenses. Some will say, can you put money down for an apartment, this, that, whatever. Some people say yay, some people say nay. That could be a deal breaker. Okay. But if you don't have, you don't have. But you're going to tell me, person get in a terrible situation, you're stuck, and you have to move a bunch of times. Okay, so what do? What are you going to do? Rob a bank? You don't have the money. You don't have the money. That's it. So speaking of someone who's owned, a couple apartments, over the years, I'm not going to say it's bittersweet. It's more bitter than sweet, right? But okay, so I'm stuck in my own situation. Okay, that's what it is. That's what it is. If a person never owned, it's one thing, right? I know someone, 25 years, 30 years, I think. No, probably 20 years, 25 years before they finally owned an apartment. Finally got help to own an apartment. Rented all those years. All those years. You don't have. So what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to sell off body parts or try and, you put yourself in absolute debt to do it. Figure out, who says? Person got 7, 8, 9 kids. What are you going to do? And how can you keep juggling that amount of money? You got to pay it back. Even take out a mortgage, you still got to pay it back. You got to pay it back every month. And what you do it a bunch of times, you still haven't paid off the first one. It's hard. It's definitely hard. People survive miraculously. There's no question. There's absolutely no question. But who says you have to put yourself in that situation? My Rebbe was very strong, very, very strong. And he says, heads of yeshiva telling their students to do such a thing and hold out for such a thing. He says they're responsible. That's what he said. Go eat kugel. They're responsible. I understand what's behind it. Makes perfect sense what's behind it. You don't have. What are you going to do? It's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. Someone asked, Zechariah chapter 14, verses 16 to 17 means no, I have to celebrate the festival of tabernacles worship on the Sabbath. No. Who says that? Right? Let's just look it up here. Zechariah chapter 14. If I find it quick. It's talking about the end of days, by the way. Anyone who knows the reference, that's what we read on Haftarah on Sukkot. Chapter 14, verses 16 and 17. There shall be those who are left over of all the nations. Yeah. First of all, a lot of nations are going to get destroyed. So whoever survives who will invade Jerusalem will come up every year and worship the King Hashem, Master, and celebrate the festival of Sukkot. Yeah, it should be that whatever the families of Israel don't go up to Jerusalem, whatever, be no rain, etc. So it doesn't mean they're going to celebrate it. Here, the Radak here says the people repented when they saw the catastrophe that was befalling their camp. In other words, people getting destroyed left and right. So they're going to mark the anniversary of the miracle on the Sukkot festival. Now they're going to celebrate it. Why would they celebrate it? They're not allowed to celebrate Sukkot. They can do something. They can commemorate it. They can acknowledge it. They can probably have an obligation. So I've been speaking about the Noahide laws to commemorate it, acknowledge it, but not celebrate it. They're not going to celebrate it. They're not going to convert either. Why? Just like in the time of King David and Solomon, where there were miracles going on left and right. No one's allowed to convert. Why? Because if you see open miracles, then you lose free will. At the same time in the when the Messiah comes, there are going to be all these miracles, going to surpass what happened in Egypt, and all the nations or people are going to say, "I want to convert." It's too late. You see open miracles, you can't convert. There's no free will over here. Free will has been taken away. So they're not going to convert. They'll have their own portion in the world to come and whatever, if they survive that. But they're certainly not going to convert. Not everyone's going to be Jewish. You're going to have non-Jews, still around, whoever survives. Yeah. Someone asked, let me see here 1 second. Someone asked, you want to buy a science book proving Noah's flood? It's made by a Christian, quotes the New Testament often. Okay. If I cut out those verbs references to JC, would it be allowed to own the book? Yeah, why not? Science books, not all science is heresy. Definitely not. But I would say that, if it's got Christian verses in it and all that, then I would definitely I would definitely cut them out. No question about that. Can a whole family contain the soul? No. Each individual has a soul. Jews and non-Jews. So you don't have a family, you don't have a family soul, but it's each individual. Each individual has a soul. Someone asked, is it wrong for Noahide to speak against abortions? Why? It's murder for a non-Jew. Might be hazardous to your health, but it's definitely permissible to speak out against it. It's forbidden, right? Non-Jews are not allowed to do abortions, right? They're certainly allowed to speak out against it. Goes against what the Torah says. Listen, a person can be outspoken about gay and lesbians also against the Torah. Pretty clear it's against the Torah, right? So, so if that's the case, you're allowed to, right? It's not a problem. Jew as well, certainly speak out against it. What does the Torah say about law attraction? Not sure I understand the question. Are you talking about the law of attraction between a man and a woman? Right? Give me further clarification on that. Someone asked, how do you get over exhausted from being studied? So simple thing is, when a person learns, Gemara says you get weaker. It weakens you because you got to use your brain. You got to think. A person really feels like, they can't keep their head up or whatever. Yeah, you can put your head down for a few minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, something like that. Take a break, throw, the splash water on your face. The rugged shover, a blessed memory, used to stick his feet in cold water and used to have long hair, attach it to a nail. So if he ever fall asleep, he'd get jerked by his head or his feet would freeze. Right? So I don't know if we have to necessarily go to that extreme, but if a person's really tired, you put your head down for a certain amount of time, or take a break, take a walk, something, get something to eat, or something. Caffeine. I know someone drinks, ton of cups of coffee, in the morning. So I'm not a coffee drinker. I'm a tea drinker. Tea also has caffeine, right? But certainly not as much as coffee, right? Injecting yourself with coffee, stay awake. Some people do it, here and there, but it's something I don't think it's a good thing, long-term solution. Do you get better, not get exhausted? The body gets tired. We can try and train the body to get less sleep and different things, but the body gets tired. Body definitely gets tired. I can tell you, and this works for me, if it works for other people as well. My wife trained me a long time ago that who says you have to sleep for a couple hours in order to get, to feel refreshed. Person can sleep for 20 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, something like that, and, be refreshed. And, that certainly works for me. I don't know if it, works for a lot of people, but that definitely, works for me. It's funny, whatever. It's been an already crazy week. It's only Tuesday. So I got back very late last night. And anyway, so I came back from learning today. I fell asleep. Next thing I know, it's usually about, if there's no traffic, about 40-minute ride, 35-minute ride, 40-minute ride, something like that. Usually it's longer. It usually takes about an hour. So I usually have a certain amount of time, to sleep on the bus. Right. Next thing I know, I'm like, I'm at the entrance to where I live. So I was like, wow, that was good. I was just out. Probably about 15 minutes, 20 minutes or whatever. So that, is totally refreshing. Doesn't mean, I'm rip-roaring to go and all that, but it, I could take, let's say, for me, like, 20-minute nap, 15, 20-minute nap, and, I can go for a while, go to sleep probably pretty late tonight also, but only because, if I didn't have that I'd be schlepping, I'd just be more tired. But learning tires a person. That's for sure. Definitely tires a person. Does a person never if they learn, they never get exhausted. They do. Your body is just, it can only take a certain amount. It needs to rest. There are some people, if they learn if they learn full time, they take a nap in the afternoon. Take a nap for, let's say, an hour or something like that. I never wanted to do that, only because I didn't want to be subservient to a nap. If I didn't get my nap or whatever. So sometimes, okay, I had no choice. I was just too tired. So put my head down for a while, or whatever. But it's exhausting. Learning is taxing. It's not like you're never going to get tired, right? How is it possible never to get tired? It's, a person walks around, they splash water on their face, they eat something, obviously not necessarily something with sugar, because that can bring you down also. But it's hard. It's learning's exhausting. Learning's definitely exhausting. One second. Let me look at something here. Let me see. So if you meant the law of attraction, positive thoughts bring positive results. Yeah, that is definitely a Torah idea. That if a person, has positive thoughts, it can have an effect, positive effect on different things. Person has negative effects, for sure, it can affect you negatively, right? That's for sure, right? Anyone's been around negative people know, they're just bitter, angry people that, just gives off in their body language, so negative thoughts, defeatist thoughts, can destroy a person. And when someone is sick, let's say they had a stroke. There was someone a number of years ago had a stroke, and they gave up the will to live. They didn't want to go through rehab and this and that. They basically gave up the will to live. So everyone will tell you, if you give up the will to live, you'll die. Your body will give out eventually. So, part of the recuperation process in any illness is attitude. Attitude changes everything. Now, does that mean you're going to overcome everything? Not necessarily. You might have setbacks and all that, but there is a tremendous difference in attitude. Person that has a bad attitude, negative attitude, 100%. 100% can have a negative effect. Positive effect as well, right? In other words, a person thinks in a positive way, will have a positive effect, or it should have a positive effect. At the same time, negative effect, certainly affect people negatively. I don't think there's any, that's what I would say about that, but it has an effect on our psyche. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to stop here. This is every Tuesday and Thursday. Anyone has any questions, feel free. You can find me on Facebook at Rabbi Chaim Coffman, beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism. You can send me an email, rabbichaimcoffman@gmail.com, RBBIChaimcoffman@gmail.com, whichever a good beginning of the day or middle of the day, depending where you are.